What is C Sharp? What is the difference between C Sharp and .NET? The simple answer is, like all other programming languages, JavaScript, Java, PHP, C Sharp is also just a programming language. But to be more specific, C Sharp is an object-oriented programming language which runs on the .NET framework. And what is .NET? .NET is a framework. See, .NET framework looks something like this. Here if you see, there are many other things and components here in the .NET framework, like common language runtime which manages the execution of programs. Things like memory management, security checks, extra are done by CLR only. Then we have framework class libraries, which is the collection of classes provided by .NET framework. For example, you may have used a string class or collection classes. All those are part of the framework class libraries. Then we have data access. Together, these two will make the base class libraries. Then we can create different type of projects in .NET framework: web services, web forms, window forms, web API, etc. Then common language specification component. CLS is used to compile all these language into some common assembly. For example, if the same logic code is written in different languages like C Sharp, VB.NET, then what .NET compiler will do? .NET compiler with the help of CLS and CTS will compile the code in the same common DLL or assembly with no difference. And finally, at the top of .NET framework, we have our programming languages supported by .NET framework. It can be VB.NET, C++, C Sharp or JavaScript. Now you know C Sharp is just a programming language, whereas .NET is a framework for building and running softwares and applications. Hope the difference between them is now clear to you. What is OOPS? What are the main concepts of OOPS? This is a very important question. OOPS is nothing but a collection of few concepts. Let's see all the concepts. Here are the main concepts of OOPS which every programmer must know: objects, classes, inheritance, polymorphism, abstraction, and encapsulation. When anyone will ask you the 4 pillars of OOPS, then they are inheritance, polymorphism, abstraction, and encapsulation only. Now if you see the diagram here, object is the first concept of OOPS. Therefore, OOPS stands for object-oriented programming, which means it is a way to create software around objects. And using all these concepts, OOPS provide a clear and clean structure for the softwares and web applications. What are the advantages of OOPS? When we say what are the advantages of OOPS, that means we are talking about the advantages of encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism, and abstraction. Now let's quickly see what are the advantages. First is reuse of code through inheritance. For example, you can create one method in base class and then use that method in multiple derived class without even rewriting them. So this is reuse, right? You are reusing the code, and that is why the inheritance. Second advantage is OOPS gives flexibility through polymorphism. For example, same name methods can do different things via overloading or overriding. For example, if you have one method run, then run you can use for the computers and you can use for the business also. So you can run the business, you can run the computer, right? So same name but different functionality. That is polymorphism. Third advantage is the principle of data hiding or encapsulations provides you the security, right? So OOPS provides to build secure programs, meaning your field or data are not accessible directly. Data is accessible via property only. So that is one advantage of OOPS, which I will explain in detail in upcoming videos also. Next advantage of OOPS is OOPS systems can be easily upgraded from small to large system. This means if you follow OOPS, then you can add more and more functionalities in your application easily in future. which is good for enterprise level application. Maybe your application is small now, but it can accommodate any number of changes in future if you are following the OOPS concepts. Last advantage is modularity for easier troubleshooting. This means if you divide your application into separate classes, then you will easily identify in which class you have to look for a particular defect or functionality. In the interviews, you can simply tell 3 to 4 or advantages of out of these, and that will, I think, is done and great. What are the limitations of OOPS? The limitation is OOPS is not suitable for small applications, because if you are planning to implement all OOPS concepts, then you need planning as well as time. And if your application is very small and you have limited time, then you should do less planning and quick implementation. For example, to implement inheritance, you have to analyze, right? What will be the base classes? What will be the derived classes, right? Analysis take time, and if you don't have time, then we should not care about OOPS, because execution and delivery are more important, right? What are classes and objects in C#? First, what is class? Let's see the code of a very basic class with all its members, all class members. See, employee is a class here, and here are all the members of the class. So what is a class? A class is a logical unit or blueprint that contains fields, methods, and properties. Why logical unit or blueprint? Because class does not do anything by itself. You have to create its object to use it. For example, here employee is just a logical unit. But me, Happy, or anyone like you are the real employees. So you are the instance or objects, and we do things as per our employee class behavior. So that's why classes are blueprints only, and objects are the real things which exist in memory. Now let's see some basic details about the important members of a class. Later we will cover them in detail in separate questions also, okay? So first class member is constructor, which name is similar to the class. See, it is employee here, right? Then we have so constructor is a method in the class which gets executed when a class object is created. So whenever you will create the object of this employee class, the code inside this constructor will automatically execute. Now we will cover constructor in detail in upcoming videos, okay? Second class member is field, which is experience here. A field is a variable of any type. Here the type is integer, or you can say field stores that data in your application. Okay. So field is basically data. Next class member is property. A property is a member that provides help in read and writing the private fields. Why we need property when we already have field? That's because of encapsulation, and that we will cover in detail in upcoming videos. Next important class member is method, which is calculate salary here, and which will calculate the salary of the employee. The most important method for every employee, I think, right? Now, if method is a block that contains a series of statements, or you can say all the business logic of your application will be placed inside the methods only. Remember, properties are also special kinds of methods only, but properties only get and set fields. Therefore, it is convenient to keep them separate from normal methods. So this is a normal class we have in all our applications. Now the question is, how can we use this class in our application? And as I said earlier, this class in itself is doing nothing, because class is just a blueprint. It cannot do anything by itself. In order to use this class, we have to create the object of this class. Now like this, see here we are creating the object of the employee class. This obj employee is the object. It can be me or you, any employee, right? And then we are setting the property experience, like my experience, and finally calling the calculate salary method, like my salary it will be calculating, okay? So the definition is An object is an instance of a class. I hope now you are clear what is a class, what is the object, and what is the difference between class and object. What are the types of classes in C Sharp? Now, sometimes interviewers ask this senseless question where the context is not clear. Because a class can be public, private, and protected also. Or a class can be also like abstract class, static class, partial, and sealed class. Okay. Now you have to answer both ways. Whatever he is thinking, the interviewer, he will get it. Okay. A scenario-based question is it possible to prevent object creation of a class in C Sharp? The answer is yes, it is possible. If you see the code here, we have three classes: abstract class, private class, and static class. Now, if you will try to create the object of any of these class, then compiler will give the build error and build will fail. So the answer is we cannot create the objects of abstract class, private class, and static class. And what is the use of these classes then? What that we will discuss in upcoming videos. What is property? Let's quickly see the sample property here. Here you can see this my property is a property, right? And this my property is getting and setting the my property field value. So the definition is a property is a class member that provides a flexible mechanism to read and write private fields. In projects, we must never access fields directly. For example, if you make this field public, then you can access it directly, right? But that will violate encapsulation principle of OOPS, and that I will explain later in videos. But for now, just remember we use properties to get and set the fields values. Nowadays, this my property one is the shortcut way to describe the properties. You need not to write 5-6 lines of statements to just declare the property then. What is the difference between property and function? This is the main question. And the answer is property is a specialized function only. Specialized means properties are used only to get and set field values. Property will not do anything else. Syntax is slightly different, but internally property and functions are same. Now, if you want the proof of this, then see this code. We have one property here, my property, right? And when we try to create the function with same name, my property, then .NET compiler will not let us do this. And it will say function already contain a definition for my property. And duplication function is not allowed. That means function and properties, basically property is also a kind of specialized function only. Here is the question, what are namespaces? Namespaces are something like this. See, it's just a container which contain one or multiple classes. Now, whenever you need this my class in some other file for some other class, then there at the top you can use my namespace like this. And then you automatically get the class my class here. Then it is bit like convenient to manage the import of the classes, right? One other example I will show. See, we are using the string builder class which is under system.text namespace. So the definition of namespace is a namespace is a container for a set of related class and other types. Mostly it is used for classes, but sometimes you can also declare delegates or something like that also inside namespaces. That is what are the other types here.